All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan, and I'm the pastor here. So good to be with you all tonight. You all, to you, I'm speaking to you online, you Facebook people and YouTube people and website people. It's good to have you here. And all of you in the house, welcome to Free. Glad you're here too. If you're new with us, even if you've been here a long time, sometimes we need the reminder who we are, what we're about. Just to remind you, we're a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here at Free is break the silence of addiction, and we create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. If you're new here, here's a little video to check out who we are. It goes a little deeper. Check it out. Welcome to Free. As a recovering addict who spent years hiding my drinking and trying to be a pastor at the same time, I get what it means to live in guilt and shame. Now, you could be watching this right now as a person in active recovery or a person who desperately wants to quit but can't seem to figure out how. We want you to know our community was designed for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. We built Free to break the silence of addiction while creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. In fact, let me show you how someone explained what Free is to them.
Okay, I've never spoken in front of a camera, and so what Free means to me is when my boyfriend died, literally right now, a month ago to the minute, of an overdose, and he died alone, and I had nowhere to go, and this place saved my life, and I wouldn't know where to go, and it's not church, and it's not a meeting, and it's everything, and the people, and everyone's real and raw, and helped me be brave, so thank you.
This place is for you. Depending on when you're watching this video, there may or may not be a Free in your city, but the good news is, my friend, we're coming. It's important for you to know that you're not alone. Whatever you're dealing with or going through, it's accepted here in this community. And not only do we want to see you grow in your spiritual connection, we want to be riding in the wagon with you. So take the next step. Click Connect or Learn More below and fill out our Connect card. If you want, one of our team members will contact you, and if you don't want them to, just simply submit the form and let us know where you're connecting from. And if there's a big interest in your city, who knows? You might be our next stop. All right, welcome back, everybody. You know, one of the things I absolutely love about this community, and someone was asking me just the other day, where'd you come up with that? Where'd your community get that? How'd you guys come up with that? I don't know how we came up with it. We said it one night and it stuck with you all. It's the phrase we get asked about more than any other phrase in this community, and it's the thing I love most. I want you all to say it with me on three. The thing we don't do. 1, 2, 3. We don't do shame. That's who we are in this community. If you're with us tonight, we're glad you're here. We don't do shame. We talked about why we don't do shame last week. We're in the middle of a series called Deep Clean. We'll get there in just a moment. But I want to let you know of a few things that are coming up that I want you to be a part of. The first thing is the grand opening of Paradigm 1 Recovery Community Center. It is in Aurora. They are opening this Saturday. It's the grand opening. I want you all to come out and support it. Tammy and I are going to be there. These are our friends Gino, you know, the Russian concussion, the professional fighter, Gino, and Jess Kidd. They are doing this together, and they've got a whole community involved in this, and they have different activities that are all centered on sobriety and recovery, and it's a community center. And this Saturday, they are going to have food, live DJ, raffle, silent auction, and you can connect with other people in the work of community. So I'm inviting y'all, I'm asking y'all to come join with me. I have the privilege of being on the board of directors of this organization. I believe in their work. They're doing good things. So let's go out and support them together. It's come and go, so you don't have to stay the whole 4 hours or 5 hours, whatever that is. 4 hours. Yes, I still have to use the fingers. So come out, 11 to 3, and come hang out. It's going to be a good time. The other thing I want to let you know about is the class that's coming up. You know what? I can't even call it a class. It's a one-day experience. And many of you know Bobby Diodario. She's part of this community. We partnered up on things together for activities and fundraisers and collection of items. But she is also the owner of My Soul Works, and she's a certified wellness coach and author of the book Mirror, Mirror in the Trash. This one is for you ladies. It is May 16th. That's a Sunday, ages 18 and up. And it is all day, well, most of the day, Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Wagon Coffee is sponsoring this event, so coffee will be provided, lunch will be provided, and it's all about a discussion on body image and self-esteem and spirituality and healthy relationships. So if you are a woman 18 and up, you might want to be a part of this. Y'all are going to have a good time. Some of us guys are jealous, right? Nah, we wouldn't do something like that, would we? All right, so I hope you all sign up for that. Shoot Bobby an email. You can find it in, if someone will post her email in the thread, then people can get in touch with her. All right, y'all, the way we start in this community is with celebrations. We don't ignore the hard stuff. We don't ignore the heartache, but we start with celebrations. We don't get bogged down in the heavy stuff first. We start with gratitude and celebrating. So I want you all to take a couple of minutes. If you're online, take a couple of minutes. Drop it to us in the comments. Let us know what you're celebrating. Let us know some of the good news in your life. Maybe it's sobriety anniversaries. Maybe it's birthdays. Maybe it's babies being born or babies being conceived. Or that's a little weird, isn't it? It can be anything you want it to be. The celebrations of good news in your life, new jobs, the new thing happening in your life. Let the community in on it. We love to celebrate together. God joins with us in the celebration, and we do it together. So take a couple of minutes, get vulnerable in the thread, and give us your celebrations. And if you're in the house tonight, we're going to do it together too. All right, we'll see you in just a moment.
Hello world, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Got that smile upon my face, 'cause there's excitement in the chase, this I know. Yeah, I'm going for the ride and find myself, I am alive, and I soar. Still I run towards the wind and let the challenge draw me in, 'cause I want more. Oh, we are all looking for adventure. 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 Oh, wake up heart and wake up mind, and see the world is yours to find. And with every passing day there's more, calling you out to explore. Get up and go. There is joy found in the race, and I feel it in the place where I'm free. And I simply can't deny it, that I feel adventure calling out to me. Yeah, we are all looking for adventure. 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 I was meant to be. Living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be. I'm living free.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We were celebrating here in the house, but now we want to celebrate with a big community online and in the house. So tradition has it, Tammy joins me up here, and we read some of these celebrations together.
Welcome,
You want to
everybody.
start?
Oh, it's like flowing back all the way to the wall. Hey.
We got back rowers in the house.
There's a lot of sobriety in the celebrations tonight.
Online, was there?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I wasn't even reading. Do tell
Yeah,
us.
Yeah, we're Here we go. Gavin, what's up, brother? This is 23 months clean, and it's been a roller coaster, but worth it.
Way to go, Gavin. Hey, Gavin, let us know where you're coming in from, too. I can't remember exactly where you're from, so we'd love to know where people are from in this community. Let us know where you're coming from. We have Washington's joining us, North Carolina, Arizona, Florida. We have different circles.
Nebraska.
Where? Nebraska, Wyoming. So we'd love to know where you all are from. So, Gavin, congratulations on 23 months. Let's keep this thing going, shall we?
Woohoo.
Kira says 18 months sober today. Hey, Drew, my mic seems a little hot if you can turn it down. But, Kira, way to go. We're celebrating that with you. 18 months. Congratulations.
Yeah, Ricky's coming out to join us soon. He'll be in person at Free in a few weeks. And he's
Yeah.
celebrating 23 months. He'll be out here for his 24 of continuous sobriety. Made an appointment to get some sober ink next week. Of course he did.
Oh, you should have waited for me,
Yeah,
man.
come and get some-
Could have went while you were out here.
Finally loving life and myself. Yeah, we love you too,
Celebrating
Ricky.
that, Ricky. Keep his comment up 1 second, Drew. I just want to say, for those of you that don't know Ricky, he's been tuning in for several months now, and he's part of this community. It's one of the things I love about this community is we're scattered about, and one of the blessings that came about this pandemic was we got to spread this community and get friends all over the place. Ricky is joining us from Teague, Texas, and he and his wife are flying in town in mid-May to spend an evening with us here at Free, and we can't wait to connect with you all in person.
So
All right, shall we keep going?
Yes. I feel like you're so excited you're going to in my face.
Sorry.
The last guy's from Chandler, Arizona.
Chandler, Arizona, from
Oh,
Gavin.
yeah.
Thank you for that, Danny.
Suzanne, Arizona, yes. Celebrating God releasing me from the chains of my addiction. She's celebrating 11 months clean.
Woo! Way to go,
Yeah.
Suzanne.
Dang, Colette.
Congratulations. All right, Colette says, I have 6 months clean today. Trevor and I are moving into our first apartment together tomorrow. The new life you get with sobriety. Way to go, Colette. We're celebrating that with you. Let's do a couple more.
Okay. Yeah, Brian. So glad you're here. Starting over.
All right.
Day 5, clean and sober.
There you
Keep
go,
showing
Brian.
up. We love that you're part of this community, Brian.
Hey, Brian, I want you to, after the service tonight, YouTube Macklemore's Starting Over song. It's called Starting Over. It's so good, and it might speak to you, man. You've probably heard it, but thanks for sharing that with us, Brian. We're celebrating day 5 with you. All right. Is it yours or mine?
Yours.
Oh, it's mine. Bobby. Bobby says day 7 from booze and day 2 fully sober.
Day 2.
Hey, we're celebrating that with you,
Okay.
Bobby. Day 7 and day 2. I'm glad you're here. Glad you're part of this
Awesome.
community. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Tammy, for always joining me up here. It's good to see you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for working things in the back, by the way, as you do. All right, y'all. We are in the second week of this 7-week series called Deep Clean. What are the things we need to be deep cleaned of? The deep cleanliness, deep cleaned of heart issues. What are the things we need to be deep cleaned of? Our first week, which was last week, Drew, do we have an image? We talked about why we don't do shame. This is meant to be a bit of a follow-up. Who God is. It's a bit of a sequel from last week. And then we still have 5 weeks after this. But who God is tonight. And we'll start with a little video.
We keep playing with fire. Knowing it's a dangerous game. So we keep playing with fire.
Who is God to you? Father Gregory Boyle in his book, Tattoos on the Heart, which is the book we are doing a discussion on for these 6 weeks, which we're in week 2 of that. He's also the founder of Homeboy Industries, and he tells a story early on in his book, and he tells a story about Willie. Willie is on the streets. He's involved with gangs. He comes to Homeboy Industries periodically, and when he does, he's always hitting Father G up for some money. He says he's hungry. He needs some money to eat. And this particular night was no different. He came in late at night. He startled Father G just a bit. And Father G says, "Willie, what do you need, man?" And Willie says, "Father G, I'm hungry. I need some money." And G says, in the book, he tells us that he was tired that night and he just wanted to go home. And it was easier to take Willie to the ATM than to argue with Willie about not giving him money. So he says, "All right, Willie, get in the car." And they head up to the grocery store where the ATM is. And Father G goes and pulls into the parking lot, and he looks at Willie. He says, "All right, I want you to stay in the car. I'm going to go to the ATM and see if I can trick a few bucks out, and we'll get you something to eat." Father G starts to walk into the grocery store, and he looks back at Willie to make sure he's still in the car. And Willie is using sign language and hand motions to say, "G, I need the keys so I can turn the radio on." And G says, "You don't need the keys. What you need to do is pray." And so G goes into the grocery store where the ATM is. He withdraws some money. He comes back out. And he finds Willie in a perfect prayer posture, position. His head is tilted up, looking towards the ceiling. His eyes are closed. And G says, "Willie, it looks like you're praying." And he says, "Shh." And another minute goes by, and Father G says, "Willie, I'm interested. What did God say to you as you prayed?" And he said, "Well, G, the first thing he said was to shut up and listen. And so that's what I did." And another moment goes by, and G says to Willie, "Willie, tell me something. How do you see God?" And he said, "God? That's my dog right there." And then he said, "Willie, tell me something else though. How does God see you?" A man who's full of ego and confidence. Part of gang life, part of street life. And all of a sudden in this moment, tears are falling down his cheeks. And he says, "God thinks I'm firme," which means to the homies, doing just fine, couldn't be better. Who is God to you? Because how you see God has everything to do with how you perceive the ways in which God sees you. How you see God has everything to do with the ways in which God sees you. And see, how often do we slip into the thinking that when things are going well, God is really blessing us. God is on our side. God is giving. And when things aren't going well, when life is falling apart a little bit, we say, God must be angry with me. God must be punishing me, or God is disappointed, and God is trying to teach me some sort of lesson here. And when we slip into this thinking, God becomes an entity that is all about punishment and reward. And so faith becomes this project that is all about doing enough, sacrificing enough, being good enough to keep God on your side so you can continue to be blessed. And my brothers and sisters, where did we get all this? Where did it come from? It's so deeply ingrained in the DNA. Where do we get it? Did we just make it up? Who is God to you? Which brings me to the system of religious sacrifice. And I want to go deep into this system for just a moment. And I want you to hang with me because I think you're going to find this absolutely fascinating. Now, early humans, they came to the realization that their survival as a species was dependent on things like food and water. And for food to grow, it needs the right amount of sun and water, right? Too much water and things wash away, and not enough water and things die. And it's the same with the sun, right? Not enough sun, things don't grow, but too much sun and plants wilt. And the basic observations led the people to the conclusion that their survival depended on the unseen forces that they couldn't control. And the belief came about that these forces are either on your side or they aren't. And you would do everything, you would give up everything to get these forces, the gods, on your side and to try to keep them there. Because either your crops would grow or they wouldn't. You could have kids or you couldn't. Your animals would stay healthy or they wouldn't. And so the faith project became, how do we keep the gods, these unseen forces, on our side? And it would work like this. If your harvest year was going well, if the harvest came in and you had a good crop, well, then you would take a large portion and sacrifice this portion to the gods to let the gods know that you're grateful. If your animal life, if things were healthy that year, well, then you would obviously need to take a cow and sacrifice it to the gods to let the gods know that you were grateful and you would keep them on your side. But wait a minute. What about when things wouldn't go well? What about when your crop wouldn't come in? What about when there wasn't enough rain that year? Well, then obviously the gods are angry with you, so you need to set aside more crops. Even though less came in this year, you need to sacrifice more crops to the gods to get them on your side. And what about when the animals weren't healthy? Well, maybe you didn't sacrifice enough animals last year. So this year, instead of doing one cow, you need to sacrifice 2 cows and maybe throw in a goat and a lamb with it. Are you with me how this works? And listen, in this anxiety-producing system, you never really knew where you stood with the gods. You know, we have history. We have stories that tell us about the prophets of Baal. And the prophets of Baal, this was 3,000, 4,000 years ago in the land of Canaan, and they would go to the altar of Baal, and they would literally get out a knife and cut themselves to shed their own blood to show the gods how devoted they were. And see, we hear stories like that. We read these stories and we say, man, it's all so primitive and barbaric. I mean, who would ever do that? And these stories are in the Bible, by the way. It's why some of you say, yeah, Pastor Ryan, it's why we shouldn't be reading the Bible, because I can't really relate to any of those stories. I mean, who can relate to that? We would never do anything as barbaric as that. Really? How many young people do you know? Shoot, take out the word young. How many people do you know that stand at the altar of not being good enough? Yeah, you can't relate to it until a 16-year-old young lady walks into your office and sits at your desk across from you and raises up her sleeves and says, I can't stop cutting. Literally taking out a knife, wounds, scars, shedding blood. Am I good enough now? Do you see me now? Shame, do you see me now? God, do you see me now? A 3,000-year-old religious ritual. Now, if you wanted to show the gods how serious you are, what's the most important thing you could give? Let me ask it another way. Parents in the room or parents watching, if you wanted to show the gods how serious and devoted you are, what's the most important thing you could give? Your child, your firstborn. Which brings me to this really fascinating story. Hang with me. It comes from Genesis chapter 22. Some of you know this story even if you've never read it in the scriptures. Genesis is the first book of the Bible, the first book of the Old Testament or the Hebrew Bible. Genesis 22 is about a story of a guy named Abraham going up a mountain to sacrifice his firstborn son, Isaac. And I want you to hear it and read it through the lens that we just talked about. Are you with me? This is fascinating. Genesis 22, we'll look at the first 12 verses. After these events, God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. Abraham answered, I'm here. God said, take your son, your only son whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him up as an entirely burned offering there on one of the mountains that I will show you. Abraham got up early in the morning, harnessed his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, together with his son Isaac. He split the wood for the entirely burned offering, set out, and went to the place God had described to him. And let's pause there for just one moment. Are you reading this wondering, hold up here, why is Abraham not just a little bit shocked at this request? Because I promise y'all, if God came to me or if God came to you, you'd probably protest, right? No, God, I don't want to do it. No, God, pick someone else. He'd be much better for this project. Pick someone else. I ain't going to do it. In fact, if I came to you tonight and said, look, y'all, here's the deal. I was praying earlier today. God spoke to me. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to take my son Breck, 5 years old, and we're going to head up I-70 and go to Lookout Mountain, and I'm just going to do a little bit of sacrifice there. Yeah, you'd be turning off the live stream right now, wouldn't you? Some of y'all would walk outside and you'd get on the phone, call Child Protective Services, as you should, right? Why is Abraham not just a little bit shocked? Because Abraham lives in a very particular time and place with a very particular people, with very particular observations, and this is how the gods work. This is just the way it is. Let's keep going. There's just a few more verses. On the 3rd day. By the way, what happens on the 3rd day when you see that in the Bible? It's a resurrection, new life. It is the storyteller giving us a huge heads up. Pay attention because a new thing is about to happen. God is doing a new thing. Don't miss the story turn. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw that place at a distance. They arrived at the place God had described to him. Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. This had to get a bit awkward. He tied up his son Isaac and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. Then Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to kill his son as a sacrifice. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham, and he said, here I am. And he said, don't lay a hand on your boy or do anything to him. Do y'all see how radical this story would have been? For the ancient hearers of this story, the ones hearing this story, their eyes would have gotten all of a sudden big. Their jaws would have been on the ground. And their question would have been, whoa, whoa, whoa. What kind of God stops a sacrifice, especially of this magnitude? What is happening here? And it's like God says, Abraham, my boy, I know you are so used to the way the gods work, and the gods, they are addicted just like we are. They're addicted to more and more and more, and it's never enough for them, and they want the thing that's most valuable to you. Stop. That's not what I need. That's not who I am. Stop with all the sacrifices. I know you thought I needed it, but it's not who I am. It's not what I need. A couple of years ago, we were visiting my mom down in Florida. And I don't know how your moms do it, but when we go into town, Mom has a gift baskets laying on the bed, and she'll put some homemade goodies in it. And sometimes there's chocolates and coffee. And on this particular visit, she had some of my old notebooks and journals and diaries in this basket. And one of these journals was my old sermon journal. It contained old sermon notes from my teenage years. And I'm reading through these sermons, and I stopped at this one, and it brought me back to the memory of this sermon. And I was 17 years old. I was invited by a big shot pastor to fly down to Tennessee to do a revival. Different time, different day for Ryan, all right? Keep that in mind. I was going to do a revival. Ben's laughing back there. Yeah, there's sometimes reading through this journal, it was sometimes painful. But it's where I was, all right? So I'm reading this journal and coming back to this memory. And apparently, according to these notes, I preached on this text, Genesis 22, the story of Abraham going up the mountain to sacrifice his son Isaac. And here's how I ended the sermon. Quote, are you willing, like Abraham, to give up everything for God, even the most important thing? And y'all, it was a beautiful moment because the music started to come in, and I invited people up to the altar to sacrifice different things in their life, not children or anything like that, but to give the thing up that was most important to them. And I felt so good about it, but here's the problem. Any reading of this story that makes it about Abraham's faithfulness is a poor reading. This has nothing to do with Abraham. It has everything to do with God. You see, that question of what are you willing to give? Are you willing to give the most important thing? That question has nothing to do with this story. That question actually undermines the new thing God is doing. That question keeps all the same old guilt and shame and anxiety in circulation. And this story is about God doing a new thing, saying, stop. You don't have to live in that kind of anxiety. You don't have to live with that kind of shame. My brothers and sisters, what is God like to you? You see, do we simply have the same old gods and goddesses? We just call them by different names. You see, maybe for you, God has been the God of comparison, the God of measuring up, or the God of success. To which I ask, what does this God demand? How much does this God need? What do you have to sacrifice? Your family? For success, what's it going to take? Your kids? Your well-being? Your health? Your wholeness? Your presence? I mean, how much is enough? And when do you ever know that you've reached it? When is enough ever enough? What does this God demand? Or let's just state the obvious. I mean, maybe your God is still the God of addiction. What does this God demand? Because in my experience, this God demands everything. This God doesn't stop until everything is taken from you. Or maybe it's been the God of guilt. Something that was done to you or something that you did in your past. And what kinds of sacrifices does this God demand? What does this God need from you? What's the thing of most value to you? Is it your peace? And do you tell yourself, well, if I can just keep running from this thing, if I don't really have to face this thing, then maybe this God will be appeased? Or is God just the game you play when things aren't going well? How many times do we play this game? God, I'll do anything. God, I'll give you anything if you get me out of this situation. God, get me out of this and I'm yours. You see, and maybe you've made the whole God project really complex and you've been trying so desperately to make God happy and to make God proud of you and to get God on your side, and this God says, stop. You don't have to do that. I'm already here. I'm already on your side. You don't have to sacrifice anything else. You see, when I came into recovery, I had to discover a new kind of God. And God keeps changing along the way, and that's okay. I hope it's that way always, a constant evolving relationship with God. And I should actually say it this way. My mom reminded me of this a couple weeks ago. She said, Ryan, it's not that God keeps changing, it's that your perceptions about God have changed along the way, and that too is good and healthy and okay. And see, in my active addiction, I would try to sacrifice things to get God to be proud of me, to get God to be enough in God's eyes. And I said to myself, well, maybe if I could read the Bible enough, if I could pray enough, if I could do church enough, then God's going to be proud of me, then God's on my side. And I think God's like, yo, I'm already here. And I've been here the whole time. You don't have to do anything more to get me on your side. I'm already there. And how many of you in recovery have slipped into the thinking that if I could just go to enough meetings, if I could just read the big book enough, if I could just work these things enough, then God would be proud of me. Then everyone sitting in the room would be proud of me and see how good I am. Then I'll know something. Then I can teach you about something I know. And my brothers and sisters, when it comes to you and God, do you believe that you are firme? Couldn't be better. you're good. You see, any system, any concept, any idea that tells you that you have to do something to get God to be with you, or do something to get God on your side, or do something to get God to love you, any system that tells you bad things are happening in your life because God is punishing you, it's a system that needs to be rejected. If you have been working tirelessly to get God on your side, and bought into the thinking that God is not going to love me unless, well, this story invites us to stop. So I want you to take just a minute and engage that question. Give us a word, give us a phrase, a short sentence. Who is God to you? And we'll come right back. Well, a dad just walked up to me. Ben walked up to me. His 5-year-old daughter's here. Their 5-year-old daughter, Madison. Hi, Madison. I'm so glad you're here tonight. She said to Dad, and Dad come up and told me, Madison said that God is love, and everyone knows that. Amen, girl. I ought to have you preach next week. God is love, and I hope everyone knows that. Sometimes we get it confused, don't we? All right, y'all. If you're new with us, joining us here at Free, well, every single week we have a guest storyteller that joins me at the table, and I get to have a conversation with this storyteller, a sort of interview and pick the brain of this storyteller. And tonight we have Brother Lex Papesh in the house. Lex is the founder and CRO, the Chief Recovery Officer of the Akron House, which is in Aurora, Colorado, right? Aurora? It's Denver? Why did I think it was Aurora? It's close. Might as well be. It's close. It's in Denver, Colorado. I botched that completely. Lex has been a longtime member of this community. He and his wife, Amanda. All sorts of good things are happening in the Akron house. Is it true? I want you all to hear some of the good things happening among the Akron boys and gals, we could say, right? There's some, it's only guys that live there, but there's some girls connected to you guys. We'll leave it at that. So I want you all to help me welcome Lex. Oh, you are hot. That sounds weird. Your mic is hot. Woo.
You've been on fire.
The things we say when we're live, right? All right, Lex. Thanks for being here, man.
I am happy to be here.
It's good to have you here.
It's my honor.
Look at all the Akron boys we have in the house.
Yeah.
It's good to have you fellas here tonight, too. So we want to have a conversation.
Yeah.
This is going to be less interview style, more conversation. Danny, can I scoot back? It feels like I'm way ahead of him. Can I scoot back just a little bit? Okay, tell me if I do too much. Okay, are we good? Yeah. Okay, let's get this thing started. So when we met this week, we were talking a lot about step 2.
Yeah, we did.
How this led us to, and I just want to read it because I wanted to ask you about what it means to be restored to sanity. Mm-hmm. Can you quote step 2 for anyone who doesn't know step 2?
Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity.
Step 2, so we're talking about the 12 steps That's step 2. Came to believe. And you said, how can you come to believe that this power greater than you can restore you if there's not an all-loving, benevolent God who loves you and wants the best for you? I think it would be fascinating for people to hear how you think about that.
Yeah,
Whoa,
becoming
yeah.
to believe in this benevolent power, it has to do with what you were touching on earlier, who God is, and perhaps just as importantly, who God isn't.
Yeah, yeah. Say more about that.
Well, you talked about your ideas about God changing over time, or actually your mother pointed out that it was your ideas.
She called me out.
Yeah, that were changing over time. It wasn't that God was changing over
Yeah.
time, but your ideas, they are. And I think I'll touch on that further in the rest of the 12 steps in a minute, but it really is a came to believe.
Yeah.
And I will point out that in Romans, it says, "So brothers and sisters,"
Now,
because
hold on. Some people may not
Yes.
know what Romans is.
Romans
is
a book of the New Testament,
There you go.
written by Paul, and he is talking in chapter 11 about the nature of God and his relationship to his people. And chapter 12 starts out with, "So, brothers and sisters, because of God's mercies, I encourage you to present your bodies as a living sacrifice that's holy and pleasing to God."
Yeah.
And it's important the order that these things are coming in. It's because of God's mercies that we present ourselves as a living sacrifice, not in order to gain God's
Yeah,
mercies.
yeah.
And I didn't grow up in the church. So I had secondhand knowledge. I had a child's understanding of what might be going on at the churches that we dabbled in when I was a child, but I wasn't raised in faith. So I really did have, I had ideas that I had to give up
Yeah.
when God presented himself to me and said, "Hey, buddy, you're going to need me desperately. You don't know why yet, but you're going to."
Tell everyone how many years have you been sober?
11 years now.
11 years.
Yeah.
So you have some experience in this stuff, and I get it, y'all. I don't want anyone to get confused. It's generally not an impressive question when we say, "Well, I've got so many years," because all we have is today, right?
Absolutely.
But
And
you've got some experience with the sanity, being restored to sanity stuff, and I want people to hear, what do you think that means? Because I remember when I came into the 12 steps, it was hard for me to admit a lot of things. One, that I was spiritually disconnected, but hearing and seeing step 2 that if I need to be restored to sanity, that means I'm insane.
Right.
And
So it's all a mental thing, right?
it's a mental thing, and in my life, certain gods had to die.
Right.
Still, some of those gods have to die. But this is like ancient Christian tradition stuff, death and resurrection. Tell us more about it.
Well, sanity is so much more broad than just what's going on in our brains.
Yeah.
And yes, we do need that physical healing. We need mental sanity, but we need relational sanity. We need spiritual sanity. Sanity just means health.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the word means. And we've put it in this small box.
Yeah.
And made it all about what's going on in the brain. And if that's as far as you're going to go with it, then fine. You're going to be able to stop using.
Yeah.
But if that's as far as you're going to go with it, how are you going to learn to start living?
Yeah. So, also, when we were talking last week, you told me the story of 2 guys in your house.
Yeah.
The guy who knows everything about religion,
Right.
versus the guy who knows nothing about religion. And I'm using religion intentionally here. And share with us the stories of transformation of who God is when people encounter who God is, rather than whole sacrificial religious system stuff.
Right. Yeah, guys that come in with a lot of things encrusted on their idea of who God is. This pure, simple idea of this healing God. A lot of guys do come in with a lot of ritual and a lot of church background that influences how they see this healing taking place.
Yeah.
And how much they have to do to be worthy of this healing. And those guys are in as much of a predicament as the guys who come in with no idea about this.
I mean, you're
God.
speaking my story. I had lots of ideas and training and readings about who God is. But that could not get me sober, is what I learned. That is, knowing about who God is was not enough to get me sober.
Your theology degree didn't help.
Yeah, all the books I read. Thank you, Lex. And it's absolutely true, right?
Right.
And I would want to tell that to people. No, I've got an MDiv. No, I've got a biblical studies degree, Lex. Come on.
Okay. Excuse me.
Yeah, right. So keep going.
So, we have had our share of both types of guys, and then guys that weren't interested in a spiritual solution at all. One of the guys in particular who knew a great deal about religion struggled mightily and relapsed more than once. And it was really after his last relapse that he sent a text to me. We had talked over the evening, and then the next day he said, "Thank you for last night. I need help loving myself. And that love I feel from you and this house is what has given me progress and showed me how to be in recovery, not just sober, and not doing it alone. I really needed that last night." I replied very simply, "You can get there, man. I know it. Just relax your grip and come along with us."
Relax your grip.
Yeah, on everything that he was holding so tightly from the past.
And y'all, isn't that kind of what God said to Abraham? Yo, relax your grip. Drop the knife.
Quite literally.
How'd you feel when you got that text? Just on a purely human level, like what'd you feel?
Well, hopeful. If he was going to be able to really just give up, to surrender, all that stuff that he brought into the process, if he was going to be able to lay all that stuff on the altar and then walk away from it, it was going to be okay.
Yeah, I just want to take a minute. Which camera are we on, Drew? Is it this one or this one? If you are one of the ones watching right now, or shoot, if you're in this room right now and you've been one of the ones telling yourself, no, religion can save me from this. I'm just going to believe more God. I'm going to read more Bible. I'm going to read. If you're one of the ones that says religion can save me from this stuff we call alcoholism, addiction, drug addiction, whatever it is, even if you're the loved one of an addict, religion, in my experience, cannot save you from this stuff. Only God can do that, and it takes surrender. It takes stopping. It takes relaxing the grip. I love that language. I'm seeing a T-shirt, relax the grip.
Well, there you go. I like it. Maybe that's our next one.
So, and I was saying to Lex this week, I said, Lex, why I want you to be our guest storyteller this week is, man, there's lots of great sober living houses here in Denver, and we're friends with many of them. Many of them are part of this community. Some of y'all are here, and we're partners with those sober living houses. Great work is being done.
Absolutely.
And yet I do have to say, I know many of the guys in your house, and something really profound is happening there. Something deeply spiritual and transformative is happening. It's not just guys coming in and putting down the drink or putting down the drug. What's happening, man? Tell us, dude.
Well,
the secret sauce.
What's happening there is what's happening here. And to call what's happening there sober living is to put too narrow a definition on it. This is not free sober community. This is free spiritual community. And it is a community. What we have tried to do over there is stop doing what we were doing for 3 years. Put aside old ideas about what recovery was, which was you're a grown-ass man, go to your meetings, stop bitching. It's right there on the wall. Read it.
Literally,
Do
yeah.
step 5, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And we've become a community. We've become a church in the biblical sense of a church.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a spiritual community. It's not a bunch of guys staying sober. They get past that fairly early. And if new life isn't coming, then what on earth are we staying sober for?
Yeah. So in other words, if it's just about putting down the drink,
Yeah.
in other words, if it's just about the sacrifice, what good is it without the heart? What good is it without the relationship with this God who is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves? Whew, that's powerful stuff. If y'all are online right now, if you got questions for Lex, if you're here in the house, you could stick around and ask Lex questions. But if you got questions for Lex and what happens there, throw them in the comments. I see Jim Nelm says James 2:14 through 17. Do you have that memorized?
No, but we did a study of James at the house.
Oh, someone can quote James 2 then. He says, describes Lex's experience. Oh, faith without works is dead.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
There we go.
Faith without works is
I
dead.
should have been able to put a number on it.
Hallie says, love you, Lex. Your words are always so inspiring, wise, and motivating. Proud of you and grateful for you. Like I said, y'all, if you have some questions for Lex and what goes on in the Akron Sober Living house, hit him up. Do you have any room in the house right now?
We have 2 gentlemen that are leaving within the next 2 weeks. So we will have room. We don't have room right now. It's been an incredibly stable population. Strangely enough, this time of lockdown, it scared us at first.
Yeah.
And we thought, oh boy, there are going to be no meetings. There's going to be no way for these guys to find sponsors.
Yeah.
The traditional structure is not going to be available, and this could be deadly to these guys. But that's when we leaned into that and said, okay, well, if there are no meetings, we're having meetings here. And so we set up a schedule where we had meetings available for everybody every night. They're not required to come to all the meetings. Most of them do, because they've gotten to that place where meetings aren't something they have to do. It's something they get
which
to do.
hits on such an important such an important point, right?
Yeah.
That if we tell ourselves, well, if we don't make them do it, they're not going to do it. How many times, for those of you that grew up in a religious system, said that? Well, if you don't do that, if you don't go to confirmation, you're never going to do it, whatever the it is. And it's like, wait a minute, what about when you take all the rules out of it and a faith relationship still happens? Not because you're forced to or because someone tells you have to, but because you see that it's saving something about you. And that's been my experience with this 12-step stuff too. So let's end with this, because you did tell me when we met the other day to call you out a bit in your recovery experience. You said that you tried to intellectualize your way through it, that you could just think your way through recovery. Anyone tried to do that? Hands going in the air. You could just think your way through it. You could outsmart this disease of addiction. How'd that work out for you, Lex? You could sacrifice enough. How'd it work for you?
Well, actually, fortunately, I didn't have that idea for long. God intervened, and it was around day 23 of my stay in residential treatment. I could have quoted back everything I had been taught. I was taking copious notes. I could have taught the next the next group of guys coming through there, no problem. I had internalized none of it because I wasn't teachable. I was capable of imagining myself a teacher.
Yeah.
And I had to be corrected by some folks that were willing to say some hard things to me. That, along with a white light moment, that I was just given an idea that was totally foreign to me, that I had spent my life living outside of the rules, and the rules applied.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I really thought that I was creative enough that they didn't.
You're unique, Lex. That's your thing. Thank you so much for sharing this with us tonight, Lex. Thank you for being part of this community, for the grace and honesty and just, I don't know, the steadiness you bring into this community. I'm glad you're part of it.
I love this community, and I love the individuals in it.
We love you too.
Woo! All right, thank you, Lex. If you got questions, hit them up. You know something, what's that? Okay, this one. Something I keep learning along this relationship with God stuff. There's a part in a big book that says relax and take it easy. And it feels like that's what this faith stuff has become about. Like, the more I hear God's voice, God has said, Ryan, relax and take it easy. Doesn't mean you don't do any work, but relax your grip. Take it easy. You don't have to try so hard. Relax and take it easy. So if you're with us tonight, maybe you need a good word that just says relax. Take it easy. God's got you. You ain't going anywhere. You're good. You're good. Fear me. You're good. Listen, y'all, I want to tell you about the wagon. The wagon is a central image of this community. It's what we do here in this community that Lex just described so perfectly. We walk this journey together. If you want to know the deeper story of the wagon, you can go to the website. It's on there about why this wagon has been with us since day one. And part of it is we journey together and we don't do shame ever. You fall off the wagon, we don't kick the wounded. We do not kick the wounded. What do, Derek? We pick them up, we put them back on, we journey together because your healing, your wholeness, your well-being has everything to do with our healing, our wholeness, our well-being. And that's why the wagon is tattooed on my neck. It's a central image of this community. It ain't going anywhere. On top of the wagon sits a donation box. And I want you all to know there's a few donation boxes scattered throughout free, and you can always give online. But before we get to that, I just want to say your generous giving in this community, it helps create space for people who would never walk through the doors of a traditional church setting. They may not even feel comfortable sitting addict and loved one of addicts next to each other, but we have families here that do that. Hope is being found here. People say, man, I would never do the church thing, but I experience God in this place. I experience hope in this place. And it's like, it's a last chance for people who are like giving up on the God project, but they're experiencing God here. Is it true? We want to keep creating that kind of space in this community, and your giving helps sustain the mission and the message of breaking the silence of addiction so that stories can be told here, stories of hope and healing. There's 3 ways you can give in this community, and it truly makes a difference, and we're grateful for it. The first way is to simply download the app, Free Spiritual Community. It's free, and you can give there. Safe, simple, and secure, or go to the website, freespiritualcommunity.com/give, and you can make a donation there, or you can text the number on your screen, Be the Wagon. It'll walk you through some instructions. Your generous giving sustains the mission at Free. So thank you for all of you who are part of that. We don't say that out of manipulation or shame or guilt. We say it because it's true, and we are grateful, and I'm going to let y'all know that every week. We got a first-time watcher, a first-time joiner, Robin Hayward Manchego. I hope I'm saying that right, Manchego. This is my first time tuning into your program, loving the conversation and guest speaker. How have I not known about Free? I don't know how you haven't known about Free, but you know about it now, so I hope you get connected in this community, and it's good to connect with you. Stick around. Man, some powerful, powerful things happen in this community. Hope is being found and experienced, and I'm glad you connected, glad you found us. We'd love to know where you're tuning in from. All right, y'all, the way we end in this community is by sharing our heartaches. Danny, can I stand up yet? I can't stand up yet. Man, my butt fell asleep. I didn't even know a butt could fall asleep. We end our time together with heartaches. And as I said at the beginning, we begin with celebrations, but we also take seriously the burdens that we carry. Because what I know is you were not you were not created to carry these heavy burdens alone. We do it together. And what I know about this God stuff is God always hears the cries of the people. And so we lift those things up together. So just like we do with celebrations, I want to invite y'all to get vulnerable. I know it can feel a little creepy if it's your first time. Like, man, I'm going to put this in and thousands of people might read this. No thanks. But it's how we grow. It's how we develop. It's how we become community together. So I do invite you to get vulnerable. Tell us the burden you're carrying in a sentence or a couple sentences or a phrase, however it is. We have a prayer team here that prays for you throughout the week. We connect with you throughout the week. And what I know about this community is y'all check in on each other. And I love it. It's what keeps us connected. It's what keeps us healthy. It's what keeps us knowing we're not alone. So take a couple of minutes, put them in the comments, Facebook or YouTube, and then we'll come back. And if you're in the house, we'll do the same thing. Mrs. Canada is joining me back up here this evening.
It only took about 16 years to get that title.
It did. Hold on, we'll come back to that. All right, we're going to come to them right now. And we're going to lift up some heartaches online together in a big, broad community. You want to go first?
I'll take your grandma.
Yeah, my grandma, whom I get the pleasure of calling Grana.
Yeah. Hey, Grana, she says, please continue to pray for my friend Linda. She is not getting answers from her doctor. Doctor is constantly, she is constantly swollen and burning. She is so depressed. Yeah.
Prayers for
Sorry,
Linda.
Grandma.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Suzanne, down where I bet it's warm. Warm in Arizona, where we have snow here every single day of our lives now. Suzanne says, unfortunately, I fainted and broke 2 bones in my foot, having surgery on Tuesday. Please pray for me. Prayers for you, Suzanne. Sorry about that. Prayers for the surgery coming up on Tuesday. Yeah.
Layla, I have radiation damage to my thoracic spine and constant pain. Only option is to implant neurostimulator. Ooh.
That's a lot. Prayers for Layla. Jim says, prayers for Brother Irwin's comfort as he enters hospice program this week. Jim, I appreciate you lifting up Irwin in this community. We prayed for him for several weeks now, and we're going to keep him in prayer as he transitions, making his way across the threshold
I feel like we know
to
Irwin.
God's hands.
Yeah, prayers for
Yeah.
Irwin. Debbie says, my mysterious rash continues. Dang. Yeah, that's been going on for several months now. I'm sorry, Deb.
Prayers for the rash. All right, Mike says, prayers for all strength struggling addicts and alcoholics out there. Pray for all strength struggling addicts and alcoholics out there. Yes, thank you, Mike, for lifting up the still struggling addicts and alcoholics in our community and the world, lifting them up, spreading a word of hope. There is a way out of the chaos. Thank you for remembering them. Let's do one more, shall we?
An angel with taking on a new adventure by selling a wonderful home that I love. I'm opening up to whatever comes my way, walking the unknown.
All right, Angel, prayers for you. Thank you for sharing that with this community. Shall we do one more? Let's do just one more. And by the way, just because we stopped this time together, you can still put in prayer requests all week long. We'll connect with you. We will lift you up. Noel says, made the tough decision to leave a relationship and move out my things this week. Prayers for healing and mended hearts for both of us. Noel, I'm glad you're part of this community, and prayers for you.
I have to take a deep breath from that one.
Yeah,
Sorry, love.
the hard stuff. And we do that stuff in this community. We walk it together, don't we? All right, I'm grateful for y'all. Grateful for you, Tammy. Love you. Glad you're here. Well, I'm glad y'all are part of this community. Glad we get to do this life together. I would like to close with a time of prayer with you. We keep it short around here, don't we? It's the way we roll. I invite you to open your hands. Find some quiet space wherever you are, quiet space within. If you're in this room, if you're online, if you're in your kitchen, your living room, your sober living house, your free circle, wherever you are, whichever state, whichever country you're in, even if you're watching later in the week, find some quiet space, take a big, deep breathe in the God of the universe. And let's pray this prayer together. It's called the Serenity Prayer. If you don't know it, it's on your screen. And it goes like this: God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. My free brothers and sisters, this week, may you encounter the God who says, stop. I don't need the sacrifices. I want your heart. I want you. I don't need everything you've been trying to give. Just stop. I'm already with you. I'm already on your side. And this week, may you experience all kinds of grace and peace. And we'll see you next time.